So here we go. I'm making this video for the chat thread on Something Awful in the game sub forum, because in the wake of Donald Trump being elected the president, there has been some uncertainty, some fear, and shall we say a little bit of discontent. And one thing I have noticed about myself is that I'm not really as nervous as some people seem to be. And I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about something that I mentioned in the thread itself, which is that positivity is a very important part of, life in general. But some experiences shape people, and shape the way they view the world. And I want to make this video to talk a little bit about my experiences and how they have shaped who I am and how I view the world. And maybe give people a little bit of insight on my point of view, I guess. Not to say that everybody should think like I do, or that everybody should try and have the same experiences that I have had, but more that I want to use myself as a way to demonstrate that it is possible to be positive in the face of particularly extreme adversity. So, I guess I'll get right to it. The main subject of this video, obviously, myself. I haven't had a particularly hard life. I'm white, male, middle class, American. I have a lot going for me. But there's a couple things about me that society is not really a fan of. For one, I am weirdly proportioned. I would not say that I am super attractive. I have been, at multiple points in my life, short and skinny, tall and skinny, and now a little bit dumpy. And that's being kind to myself. I don't take very good care of my physical appearance, because, it's not really all that important to me. Not as important as it is to other people, at least. How they view themselves. But, that's the less important part. The more important part is that I'm gay. Well, sorta. It's complicated, but mostly. I'm halfway there, let's say. And the problem is that word spreads fast. See, when I was a teenager in early high school years, I got bullied a lot. I was bullied in junior high, too. But it was because I was an outspoken person. The type of person I was in junior high, I think, I would describe as that weird kid. You knew him. You knew a kid like that. Someone who, whenever they spoke, you would just be like, what? Like, someone who was eager to talk in class and, raise their hand and give an answer whether they were wrong or not. Even if they knew they were wrong. They just wanted to say something. To get people to pay attention to them. Not because, in my case, not because I was seeking validation, but because, because I wanted to entertain people. From a very young age, that's what I wanted to do with my life, which is why I have this YouTube channel now, because it is the easiest way to entertain people. But, even from a young age, that's what my social life was focused on. The problem is that that's not really how it came across to other people, and so when I would say something I thought was funny, other people would look at me like a weirdo. And to be fair, I was a weirdo, because other people are definitely not like I was in junior high, or at least a majority of it. So that was my junior high life. People picked on me. I got pushed around by tall kids, whatever. I was pretty short when I was a teenager. Middle of high school, I had a growth spurt, and I grew to 6'2", and in like the span of like a couple semesters, and that was pretty crazy because it was suddenly like I was walking on stilts, and I just kind of, it's like that one guy that got put through the taffy puller in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's pretty much what happened to me, minus the taffy puller. High school was different. High school is when bullies, people who don't really care about the feelings of others, stop putting you down more for how you act and more for who you are. So, that's when people started making fun of me for my life choices. Being not flamboyant, but eagerly. It's hard to describe. I wouldn't say homoerotic, but not as obviously outspoken about being into ladies as other people are. And rumors spread, and the rumors turned out to be mostly true, in people saying that, I'm that weird guy, and now I'm that weird guy that's not into girls. And when I was in high school, this was back when, gay bashing was at its peak, in the 2000s, and so I got pushed around again. I got picked on again, except now people were attacking me personally instead of just for how I acted. They were saying, basically, you are a wrong human being instead of you act wrong. And that's a very important difference, because it's the difference between hurting your feelings because they don't like how you make yourself appear, and hurting your feelings because you exist, basically. And that's a bummer. It was a real bummer to me, but, it's a bummer for when it happens to anybody. So, I dealt with that for a couple years. But, around that time, junior high school transition, I was going through some rough family time. My parents got divorced, and they hated each other. I was being shuffled back and forth between my parents' old house, now owned by just my mom, and whatever apartment my dad happened to be staying at the time. And luckily, they were both in town, and they both, they both still are in town, and I see them pretty often. But at the time, it was very confusing and upsetting. And, when parents get divorced, every kid feels like it's their fault. Like they contributed to the demise of their parents' relationship. And I know I certainly felt that way. It's hard not to feel that way. So, it definitely took its toll on my emotional state. And that, plus the bullying, just put me into this horrible, horrible, deep, deep depression. And I thought for a while that I could get out of it without any help. I had some friends, outcasts, nerds like myself, people who, identified with, the struggles of being a weirdo among a class of quote-unquote normal people. And this is the part that's kind of hard to talk about, because, before... Well, first I'll say why I'm making this video, instead of getting right to it. Maybe that'll help me build up the confidence. I'm making this video because I want people to understand not about myself and my personal life, but about how my struggles, I guess I could say, common though they may be these days, bullying and all that stuff, divorce, depression and stuff, common though they may be, they can serve as an example for how a person can take the worst possible circumstances and turn them into something positive. That's what I did, and I think that you can do it too. So I'm hoping that by sharing what I am about to share with you, that you will maybe, I guess, learn a thing or two from it. Not in a condescending way, of course, but that you will learn a thing or two about not just me, but yourself. And it's really not helping me build up the confidence to say this. But okay, here we go anyway. I fell into a very deep depression, and I started to do self-harm stuff. Like, at first, for the first couple of months, it was just like neglectful stuff. Like, I would choose not to eat, or I would choose not to talk to my friends or sit with them, or I wouldn't do my homework or pay attention in class, and my grades definitely suffered for it. I'm sure my parents could definitely tell that, but I think they were, at the time, they thought it was just me being, lazy, and I don't blame them, because I was a pretty lazy kid. I'm still pretty lazy. But I just kind of neglected myself. And that neglect definitely sent me a little bit deeper down the hole, to the point where I didn't really want to ask for help anymore. Because I said to myself early on, if I start hurting myself, like really hurting myself, then I'll ask for help. Otherwise, I want to get out of it on my own. Because it felt like exposing weakness, to ask for help from parents who, it felt like I was already hurting by just being me, because again, it felt like I was at least partly responsible for why they split up, even though now I know that it's definitely not true. But I apologize for pausing so much, but it makes me nervous. It's a nervous tick kind of thing that I have now. But anyway, long story short, this continued for a while, and eventually the neglect turned into like real self-harm, like cutting and stuff. And that was a mistake. I can definitely say that that's one of the regrets I do have, is that I did that, because I did it on my arms, and so now I have these scars that, show off to everybody, hey, this person was at one time, whoops, I got grabbed. Well, this person was at one time a pretty busted human being. And when people see that, but they don't know me, it causes them to assume a lot of things about me right off the bat. Things that might not be true anymore, even if they were at one point. So anyway, I did that for a while, and I'm sorry if that's, hard to hear, especially hard to hear about me for how jolly of a person I usually am. But, it's the truth. And, when it got to its absolute worst, well, I'm not going to describe how, because you don't want to know. You really don't. But I tried to commit suicide. And I was close. I was this close. I really was. It is a miracle that I am alive today to talk to you, to tell you about my experiences in the first place. And It's... I'm thankful every day that I am alive. But it's important that I tell you this stuff because, like, here's the thing, right? I don't tell people that about me very often, not because I am ashamed, but because it's not something that people really need to know. I don't want to go around wearing that on my sleeve, you know, but I literally have to when I'm wearing short sleeves. Sorry. But anyway, afterwards, I felt like trash. I really did. And I just didn't know what to do with myself. So, I figured, well, I'm alive, but why? You know? Because at first, it made me feel like, well, I'm so shitty I can't even kill myself right. And, there's a dark bit of humor, I guess, in a way. But, I didn't, at the time I didn't understand, really, what I had done to myself. It took a while for it to sink in, you know, for me to really step back and say, wow, I let myself get so down, so miserable, that I really wanted to just end it, you know? And I weighed on it for a while. I really did. Like, I spent a lot of time... Again, I apologize for getting dark here, but kind of have to. I spent a lot of time thinking about how, and when, and what people would think afterwards, and when they found me, and I decided I didn't care. And it was selfish of me, but I don't think that's a reason to blame... I don't think that's a reason to pin any blame on me for it. You know, I just wanted out of the situation I was in. And, Robin Williams, he said it right when he said that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And, so I struggled with that. I struggled with that for a very long time. But eventually I started to adopt the attitude that I have now, which is that it was a terrible, terrible thing that I did. And I just had to forgive myself for it. You know, I did it, and it became a part of me. And I had to put it behind me. And, I mean, obviously my school life was in ruins at this point. You know, my friends had all left me behind, and my grades were shitty. But it felt like I was getting a new start. Like, I had a second chance to reinvent myself. And that's the thing, right? I don't believe in fate or destiny or any of that stuff. I believe that the world is what it is. There is no greater power, be it a eternal God, omniscience, or just some law of the universe we live in. I feel like the world governs itself in more ways than one. You know, the laws and principles that we have are that way because, you know, that's just how the universe functions. And I think part of the reason I feel that way is because of my suicide attempt. Because I know some people might not want to hear this, but I really didn't see anything on the other side, so to speak. It's not like I actually died, but like, when I was sitting there waiting for it, I didn't, like, all I could feel was like nothing. And That's what I think is the worst thing a person can feel. Is just absolutely nothing. In any way. Just literally nothing. Like, not even feeling like sadness because you feel nothing. Just literally, literally nothing. Forgot what I was saying. Anyway, I made it a part of myself. Because I said, well, I have a second chance to live now. What am I gonna do with it? Well, it wasn't focused on my school. My grades still sucked all the way through high school. And I'm in college now, and they still kinda suck. But I'm trying. I'm trying real hard. So, yeah. I decided that I was going to try as hard as I can to make my depression, the suicide, all that stuff, into a positive aspect of myself. My life is all about positivity now. If there is bad in the world, there has to be good. You know? It's not, in my opinion, a balance kind of thing. It's more like, it's more like, I don't really know how to phrase it. I guess what I mean to say is that there is a reason to look on the bright side of anything. Like, no matter how grim, no matter how dark it seems, giving up just means that you've lost all your hope. And if you lose all your hope, then what do you have? You know? You could be the richest, most influential, powerful person in the world. You could be a millionaire. You could own 1,000 yachts on an island that you bought with 1,000,000 mansions on it, you know, and it doesn't really matter, because if you're not happy, then you can't enjoy any of it. And it's like I said at the beginning of this whole diatribe, you know, I'm just the stone cold average person in my upbringing. But it's like, even with the advantages I have, what I find to be most advantageous is my sense of hope. I've seen what it's like. I've felt what it's like to feel the absolute worst that a human being possibly can. You know, I've seen the worst thing that a person can possibly see or feel, and I came out on the other side alive. By the skin of my teeth, believe me. But I survived it, and if I can survive that, me, a person so weak-willed that they're willing to try and kill themselves, someone who was at one point in such a dark place that I seriously just wanted to remove myself from this crazy, amazing world we have. If I can survive that and come out on the other side looking up, I think anybody can. And that's the heart of what this video is about. You know, you just gotta look up. Even when things are the most dire they could possibly seem to be. The real heart of the matter is, you can still look up. And I know that's a cheesy thing to say. 'Cause, like, here's a little something about me. I hate it when people talk like they're in a movie, where they talk like they're giving, like, an influential speech to a hockey team before they go for the big game against the jocks or whatever, the hockey jocks. That kind of stuff just bugs me. When people do that in real life and expect someone to react like it's a movie by going, yeah, and cheering and all that stuff. It just doesn't happen. But, you know, sometimes you just gotta say stuff that's cheesy to get your point across. I don't know. I'm really just rambling. Because, like, I feel like I have to do something. I mean, if there's anything I can do, you know, I want to at least try. That's another thing to keep in mind, is that you just gotta try. Because if you do lose all your hope and you're sad and, you know, you can't look on the bright side of anything, it's not your fault necessarily. It can be a product of your environment or your experiences, just like it was mine. But I guess my point is that you can't let that drag you down too much, because when you do, you know, it's hard to get it back. And you don't want to go through an experience like I went through. And I don't want you to. Again, it's a strange, crazy world we live in. And I think the strangest, craziest thing about it is that, like, people are in charge of their own destiny. Like, when I made that decision to try and kill myself, it was a mistake. It was objectively a mistake. But I still made that decision on my own. Just like I made the decision to turn it into a positive thing. And it's like I said earlier, if I can do it, I think you can too. So please, in the comments, share with me your experience. Send me a message, send me an email. Message me on something awful about it. I want to know what you've been through. And I want to help you turn it into something positive. Because, for me, it was a very hard experience, going through it alone. And nobody should have to. The thing is, right, I don't want anybody to feel like I have felt. Because it really is the worst possible thing a person can feel. To feel alone. And right now, I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to be feeling alone. And if you do feel alone, tell me. Tell us all. In the comments, or however. Because I want to know. And I want to commiserate with you. So that we can all get through this together. Thanks for watching.